We are now going to take a look at the database we're going to be using for this course. My assumption is that you have installed Dreamweaver, you've installed XAMPP, you have set up your testing server environment, you have made Dreamweaver aware of your testing environment. In other words, you've gone through all of the setup movies for this course and were able to view it within Dreamweaver. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Now, this Databases tab I have open. To open and close tabs, you just double-click them in Dreamweaver. So I'm going to have my Files panel showing. I'm also going to have this Databases Bindings and Server Behaviors panel showing. Now, these will be grayed out, any panel but the Files panel, when you don't have a page open. So I'm going to open up the About Us page. You can see how it activates my Databases panel. So I want to make sure that all three of these items have a check mark. If your testing server does not have a check mark, you can click the refresh button here, provided you've gone through all of the other installation sections of this course. And in case you have defined it and everything should be set up correctly, and you're not getting this third check mark, click the testing server. It takes you out to your site setup, and if you make sure all four of these have green check marks, click Save. That might refresh this area so you get a check mark here. Now what we're going to do is set up our database connection. In my site files right now, the only folder I have at this point is the Images folder. On the PC side in Dreamweaver, the folders show all together. On the Mac side, yours may be scattered and simply be in alphabetical order. So if you're on the Mac side, don't let that throw you. But notice there is only an Images folder so far in our site files. If I open up the Databases tab, I'm going to click the plus sign and say MySQL Connection. We're going to create a connection to the database from within Dreamweaver. What that's going to do is add a new folder down in our site files called Connections. And that does need to be on your web server. What that does is tell PHP where your database is located and how to connect to it. So I'm going to set up a MySQL connection. We're going to call this connection CONN, standing for connection, and this is going to be called unique. My SQL server is localhost. Now, I just did the basic default install of MySQL. I did not complicate things by making us a separate user of the main root user. So what I'm saying is, the way we have MySQL set up now, you'd never move into production. You'd want to make sure that you have a separate username and password set up just for accessing the database through the website. But we don't have that. I didn't worry about that piece for development. So our username is going to be root. We have no password right now, so that's really kind of a security issue, but not when we're working locally. I'm going to click Select, this Select button. If you have any difficulty working with this, cancel out of this and make sure you get the testing server set up working correctly first. That's the only reason you would have trouble in here. I'm going to select the database. These are all of the databases that are on my web server. Click OK. I'll click the Test button, and you will get this message. This is letting you know that a production MySQL environment would need a password to access the database. I'm not going to worry about that for my development environment here, so I'll just click OK. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with your information. It's just giving you a notice, you know what? Don't forget to set this to a separate user when this process moves on to a full live web server. Click OK. And you should see ConUnique now listed as a database in your Databases panel in Dreamweaver. This is a really handy feature. If I click the plus sign in front of tables, and on the Mac side, these pluses and minuses tend to be arrows to the right or down, so yours may look a little bit different on the Mac side. But here are my tables. I have 4 tables inside this database. Let's take a look at the countries table. If I click the plus in front of that, I have 2 columns, or they're known as fields in a database, country ID and country name. This shows me what type of data that is in the database and how many characters. This becomes important when we create forms to insert data into the database. We don't want to try and insert 60 characters into a database field that will only hold 50. The database will return an error and it won't let us insert it because the database won't know what to do with the extra characters. Here's our tours database and all of the fields inside that table. Now to view the actual data, because these are just the columns in the table, to view the data, you right-click, View Data. So I'm right-clicking the table name. I'm not right-clicking a field in the table. The table itself, right-click, View Data, and here is the information for our tours. So here's a listing of all of our tours. These are the first 25. We'll click Next 25. You can see you can access the data this way. I cannot edit the data, but I can view the data. Now this does not expand at all, so if you want to view more of this, you do need to move it in between the columns, and then you can scroll this way. So here's our meals, non-diver cost, days of diving, total days. So these are all of the tours that Unique Vacations offers. Here's the actual name and description. And these are also listed on the tours.php page in your site files. So that is how you can view database table data by right-clicking the table name. You can also open up this area so you can preview and see what the field names are inside each table. Now this area does not allow us to set or edit data in any way. So when you create the database initially, that's when you set up your keys, your primary and foreign key, to create a relationship between tables. And that is also where you would set up and create the information for the table itself, all of the fields within the table. So we're just being able to view it here, but it comes in handy when you're creating forms to insert data into a database. To be able to look at the different fields, what they're named, how many characters, comes in very handy. So that's the Databases tab and viewing your database from within Dreamweaver.